Hi, this is Tracy Hales Vass with Right on Four Corners on KSJE 90.9 FM in Farmington, New Mexico. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Kayla Shaggy, a graphic artist, comic book writer, and artist extraordinaire. Hi, Kayla.
Oh, hello.
How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well.
Thanks so much for coming into the studio. Do you live around the area?
The Reservation by Bloomfield.
Well, I saw your books and your artwork at our local comic book store, Tales of Tomorrow,
Ah, yes.
and I was really impressed with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. How long have you been drawing?
Um, since I could pick up a pencil, really.
Yeah, I can imagine. And
Yeah.
writing also, how long?
I guess I didn't start writing my own stories until around middle school. Before that, I was kind of drawing comics about anything, but I really got interested in writing around middle school when I started reading, like, Stephen King and
Ah,
Diane Wynne Jones. Yeah.
and I understand from looking at your website and everything I'm finding out that you, like you said, Stephen King, so you like the darker side of stories.
Yeah, I really do.
That's
I'm
very
a
cool.
big fan of horror movies and stuff.
Are you?
hmm
Well, congratulations on your big win at the Durango Arts Exhibit 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. And
Yes.
yeah, it was a big achievement for me. I was really surprised and happy because it was right after I graduated.
Yes, and you graduated from Fort Lewis,
Yeah, in 2017 with a degree in Bachelor's of Arts.
and you've brought with you the Sixth World. Did you do the coloration as well as everything?
Oh,
You know?
yes, I did.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I wanted to try something new for the cover. I used my standard like pens and markers, but then I decided to use a watercolor for the sky.
Ooh,
Yeah, because I was
yes.
looking at pictures of Mars and it has that really ethereal effect of how the skies look. So I wanted to capture that.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yes. And this is issue 3. So how long has the Sixth World been in creation? How long ago?
I would say the first issue came out in 2017. It debuted at the 2017 Indigenous Comic Con
Oh,
in November, so I wanted to make it in time for that. So it's been around for like 2 years.
great.
Yeah.
And there's 3 of them now?
Yes.
But you'll continue writing this.
Yes, I will. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about what the Sixth World is.
Oh, okay. Um, so I'm Dene in Anishinaabe, and in the Dene tradition, we have stories. Our creation story involves that we were traveling from worlds. So first world was like, underground, and then we couldn't live there anymore, so we emerged to second world, and then so on and so forth until we reached the fourth world, where we're currently living in. And then there's stories about how the fifth world is when we will rejoin the holy people, which is where the holy people reside in the skies. And so the title, The Sixth World, kind of alludes to a world, past that. So like space, the final frontier and stuff like
Oh.
that. And I'm not the only artist or creator that has done this. There's Rebecca Roanhorse.
Yes.
And then there was a short sci-fi film you can find on YouTube called Sixth World 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's all in the genre of indigenous futurisms.
Indigenous futurism, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I interviewed Rebecca Roanhorse.
Oh, that's great.
It was really exciting to
I-
talk to her.
Oh, that's amazing. I really wanted to see her at last year's Indigenous Comic Con.
Right. Did you
Yeah.
see her there?
I just missed her.
Oh, too bad.
But I think she'll be at this year's upcoming one. So
I'm sure.
yeah.
So I know that this is heavily reliant on the visual, your book here.
hmm
But I'd really like our audience to kind of get a taste of what's going on. So can you kind of read some of it from there?
Oh, yeah, I can. Do you want me to give like a little bit of a more synopsis to the main character?
Please.
Okay. The story I was thinking of, I was like, what would happen if like native people went to Mars, or went to space? Because a lot of our stories and cultures and traditions reside within the land on Earth. So Sixth World is about this young Dene woman. Her name is Denora Redhorse. And she's living on Mars in this place called the Colony. And then I think it was her 18th birthday, her grandmother kind of tragically dies. And then she's kind of forced to re-examine the world she's living in now that her grandmother is gone. And then suddenly she inherits a kind of like a super suit, and it's shaped like a coyote.
Oh,
And then suddenly there's giant bugs attacking the city she lives in. So now she's wondering, like, what is going on? So the sixth world is kind of like a journey into this colony on Mars and what's really going on in Denora's place in this new type of society. And then, so issue 3 is mostly about her friend Sesha, and she's like a scribe. So in this society on Mars, the scribes are the one who hold the power. In the beginning of the book, or the comic book, within the colony, all residents, once turning 18, are required to pick a profession. Once chosen, you cannot change it. Mechanic, pilot, officer, farmer, seller, and of course, the prestigious scribe, considered to be the most important profession of all. So they're the ones who are in control of the writing, of the language, and all that.
like the historians.
Yeah, like the historians. I kind of took inspiration from like Egyptian culture because the scribes were the one that held all the power. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
And you see that repeated in history a lot. Those, who have the knowledge have the power.
And what is her main goal in this? What is she striving and seeking?
Kind of finding her place now that she's turned 18. Now she has to pick something, and the decision stays with her for the rest of her life. But it turns out there's things beyond her control, like giant bugs attacking the city, her grandmother dying. So she kind of wants to do her own thing, but she realizes the colony is very limiting. So then we learn about Sesha, and she goes to, within the story, there's different districts. There's 5. 5 is almost like 2 miles underground. And then the first district lives like in the clouds. Once you are born in a district, you have to stay there. Denora lives in the 3rd district, so she's kind of like in the gray middle area. And Sesha is from the 5th district, but she worked her way towards the top. So that's what this issue talks about Sesha. And then the things she learns, I could say it, but it might be a spoiler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't spoil it.
I would say that'd be a good teaser to
I think so too.
Yeah, to what goes on.
Yeah, this is great. And this is Denora on the front cover.
Oh, this is Sesha on the
Sesha.
on the 3rd issue.
Very interesting.
Yeah, Denora's on the cover of the 1st issue with the, she's kind of split in half, like what she looks like, and then the other half is the coyote suit.
That's very clever, the coyote suit, the trickster.
And then if you're familiar with Dene mythology, in our traditions, you can see a lot of like allusions I'm making to, like she kind of takes on the role of the trickster, and then it makes you want to learn. I hope more people are interested in learning more about our traditions through this story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you, like I said, you have these for sale at Tales of Tomorrow.
Yeah. And then they're on for sale on my website as well.
And your website is kaylashaggy.gallery?
Yes.
Yes, I was looking at that. You've got some great artwork up there.
Oh, thank you.
They compare the prize-winning photo. It's called Hell, right?
Yeah. Drawing.
Pen and ink.
Yeah.
And it's very elaborate and detailed.
It took me a month to draw it.
I can imagine.
Yeah, the original is 36 by 42 inches.
Where is that hanging now?
In my room.
Very good. And you've also led LGBT comic workshops?
Yes. Yes, I have.
But at Fort Lewis. Was that for drawing?
That one was more talking about narrative and the history of LGBTQ people within comics.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a presentation. Sometimes I did do a workshop for a school last year.
Very cool. So do you have the LGBT slant in the sixth world?
I kind of do.
Oh, cool.
And it's slowly like building up to it.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I have another comic. It's called Cat Witch and Her Crush.
I've seen Cat Witch.
Yeah, that one's also being sold at Tales of Tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's black and white, right?
Yeah, it's black and white. I drew that while I was working on issue 2, kind of like a break.
Wow.
Because Sixth World is very elaborate.
Yeah.
The creation process is writing the script, creating the storyboard, then sketching, then inking, then coloring, then scanning, and then digitally like fixing it up.
Wow. And you do all that yourself?
Yes,
Wow.
the entire process is done by myself.
So what comes first, the story or the images?
Kind of both. Sometimes I'll
Uh-huh.
get an image in my head. Like,
Right.
I was thinking, for Sixth World, I kind of had this image of kind of like a super suit, but
Uh-huh.
like, what if it was a coyote, or what if it was based on, indigenous mythological figures? So like coyote, raven, and then I thought, what kind of situation would they be in? And
Right.
then I thought about like space, and I was like, no one's done a sci-fi story yet,
Right.
so why don't I go for it? And sci-fi is one of my favorite genres.
Oh, it's perfect. I like the combination of that. And then you were talking about the different worlds, and that's perfect that the sixth world would be space.
Yeah.
I've been talking with other native artists, and Lee Francis, who owns the Red Planet
Oh, yeah.
comic book store. Do you know him?
Yeah, my books are also there too,
Oh, good, good. So you can find him at Lee's store.
in Albuquerque.
So it's fascinating how the role of the Native American has changed over the years from white men drawing or depicting Dene people
Yeah.
to actually now having them shown by yourself and other artists in strong characters,
Yeah.
like Rebecca Roanhorse, for example.
I love her book. Yeah. Growing up, I really had a hard time connecting with people because I had a speech delay. All I wanted to do was read, and I remember reading comic books for the first time and being really amazed. The juxtaposition of text and image was done so wonderfully. And my grandma's a big fan of comics too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and she had this comic book called Shaman Tears, and then it was kind of like a little adult, but I just read it anyway. And but that was like the first time I'd ever seen like an indigenous character within comic books, and I was like, oh my gosh, you could do that?
Oh,
That's okay. I want to do something like that.
So you had been drawing all along, and you just went, "Oh, I could make stories too."
I could do that too.
That's really exciting.
Yeah. So I get really happy when I meet like younger children or teenagers who are just like, I love your work, or what happens next,
Yeah.
and it makes me so happy. And then even more happier is when I hear some of them like, oh, you could be an artist? You can do that?
So
Yeah.
you're a good role model for people. Do you ever, like you said, you did a presentation up at Fort Lewis. Do you ever do presentations for classrooms or things like that?
I did do one because the teacher was a big fan of my work.
Oh, good.
And he was talking to someone at the bookstore. This was at Maria's bookstore in Durango. And he was talking to one of the workers there, and he was like, hey, do you think she could come by my classroom? And then I was like, yeah, I can. When can I go? And when I came in, and all these little kids thought I was like, like a celebrity. They
Oh,
were
yeah.
like,
Well, yeah, you are
yeah.
to them. Absolutely.
They're like, can I get your autograph? And then I drew for them. I talked about how to create personal narratives, because it was like a social studies class, language
Oh.
arts. Yeah. And I would love to do that, volunteer and go to schools and stuff.
And people, if they're interested in that, can contact you through your website,
Yeah, my email should be on there.
which is kshag15 at gmail.com.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I can see how that would be a great presentation to little kids and really inspire them.
Kids love comic books.
They do.
Yeah.
I think that I was guilty, being such a reader and an English teacher, of selling them short.
Yeah.
But then I discovered how the graphics can add to the narrative, like you said, and make it that much richer.
Yeah, definitely.
You told me kind of how your process is once you start your story and write it and draw it. But where do you come up with these ideas?
A lot of them are like me daydreaming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like as a little kid, I was really into all sorts of stuff like Godzilla, Pokemon, Westerns. Like I just gobbled up media, and then I would think about like twists on them. Like, oh, what if it was a female character instead, or what if it was a indigenous person, or another inspiration I get is like I have really vivid dreams.
Oh, okay.
So when I wake up, I just write them down immediately.
Good.
And then sometimes ideas just like pop into my head because I was listening to music or
So
yeah.
once you open your creative mind to that, you keep getting ideas.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have 3 more ideas for different comics.
Oh, good.
But for now, I'm working on the Sixth World and Cat Witch. But in the future, I'd like to explore the other genres and characters that I have.
Oh, that'll be exciting.
Oh, thank you.
Is that all you do? I mean, that's got to take full time, but
Yeah, I used to live in Durango and then I moved back home. So I'm concentrating on art full time.
good.
So I'll do like comic book stuff, I'll do illustrations, and then I'll also do like fine art. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'll submit it to like shows and stuff to fund like printing
Oh, good.
and like going to conventions and stuff like that. Because I was making comic books from elementary school, and I look at them and it's like, oh, this is a mess, but I learned a lot from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
And when you're rich and famous, people will want to see that where you started.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So your grandma has shared with you a lot of the myths of your culture.
Yeah, my grandma and my dad and my mom too. Everyone in my family, you know, and then like some other people too within the Dene community. And then sometimes I just like hearing stories, hearing different versions. Yeah.
I really like that. I like the way you've incorporated some of the myths with the futuristic science fiction.
Hmm.
That's how exciting.
Yeah. It was my goal to like, combine both of those because I felt like, visually speaking, it'd be really cool. And then
Yes.
just, another way of keeping our stories alive.
Kind of modernizing them,
Yeah.
but yet still keeping to the truth of the stories.
Sometimes I'll meet people who are like, "Oh, shouldn't you just do like the stories as they were told
Right.
and not putting a twist on it?" And right now there are comics out there that are about, for example, the Monster Slayer twins that are being like, sold right now. So there are people out there doing that, and
Sticking to the original stories.
and I think that's great too. I just feel like indigenous people should be allowed more freedom within art.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And why not? Yeah.
Yeah, because like I know artists that like stick to the traditional arts, like crafts based, and I think that's great. It's just for me, I adore comics, and issue 1 is also at the NAC, the Native American Center here
Oh,
at San
okay.
Juan College.
Oh,
They
oh,
bought some
okay.
copies for me, so
So if you're on campus here, you can stop by and check that out. So what's next on your agenda? Any presentations or upcoming art shows or?
I'm submitting some pieces to some juried shows in Durango,
Great.
and then I should hear back from them, and then I'll put announcements and stuff on my social media.
I really like your website. It's very clean and direct.
Yeah. I knew a lot of different people would go on there, so I try to make it simple
Yes.
and just concentrate on the images. I was thinking like my grandma might want to go to this website, so I should make it with her in mind,
Oh,
and other
very good.
people. Like, for example, in the Sixth World, the word bubbles and like the text in there is like very large.
It is.
Yeah, and it's in like sometimes it's in lowercase, sometimes it's in uppercase. Because I've noticed in mainstream comics they put everything in capital letters, and
They do.
the text is tiny.
Yes.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure everyone could read this, like old people and young people and kids.
I'm really glad you did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you do the printing too?
So the printing is actually done by a tribal printer located in California.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were done by an online printer before,
Uh-huh.
but the new issues are being done by Tribal Print Source in California. Yeah, and then if anyone out there is looking for someone to print bookmarks, postcards, comic books or magazines, they can do it. And if you're part of a tribe, they also give you a discount.
Now, I don't know if you're familiar with our One Book, One Community program here on campus.
I think we had something like that at FLC. Like everyone gets the one book. And then, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this year they chose a graphic nonfiction.
Oh.
So there's been all kinds of awareness coming about the comic book.
Oh, that's great.
It is.
Yeah.
So they're a very real literature.
Yes,
They're relevant and they're important, I think.
they are.
While you're working on the Sixth World and the next issue, what art are you working on right now?
I'm working on a big piece actually for the jury show, And I know, like, my Diné friends and, some other people in the community have always asked me, like, I'd like to see your take on the Monster Slayer twins. So that's a drawing I'm working on. And I did put a sneak peek on my Instagram, I believe, but that's what I'm working on right now. And it's not going to be big as the Hell drawing, but it's going to be fairly big.
I saw someone say compare it to Bosch.
Bosch is actually one of my favorite artists. I feel like his works are very, like, you could just look at it for a long time and never get bored.
There's so many stories in the pictures there.
That's my intention with art too, is like I want to show like a story, and then it doesn't have to be like this is the only story. I would like different types of people to come up and create their own narrative. And then I think at the very like my intention is that I want people to have a reaction when they look at my art. Maybe, hopefully not disgust,
Right.
I've had some people look at it and go, what is this? Yeah.
That's okay. It's controversial, and it is leaned toward the horror side, which is going to elicit some.
Yeah, I was very surprised that I won. I was waiting for, like, someone to, throw a Bible at me or something like that. But it didn't happen.
Yes. I've certainly enjoyed meeting you and getting to know your art. Good luck to you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
This is Tracy Hales-Vass. I've been talking with Kayla Shaggy, artist, comic book writer, and up-and-coming young woman of the Diné culture on KSJE 90.9 FM, Farmington, New Mexico.